In the previous videos, I showed that because of a visual illusion, the speed of light is apparently constant to all observers. If we confuse this illusion with reality, we will wrongly conclude that time elapses slower when we are moving. This is one of the main consequences of the special theory of relativity, known as time dilation. It claims that a moving clock runs slower than a stationary clock. This claim immediately leads to a contradiction, as I explain here. In the following discussion, it is very important to remember that motion is relative. Whether something is moving or not depends on the frame of reference we choose. An object that is moving relative to a frame of reference can be motionless relative to another frame of reference. For example, I am sitting here motionless on my chair, but my chair is on the earth, and the earth is moving around the sun. If the reference frame is the earth, I am not moving relative to it. If the reference frame is the sun, I am moving relative to it. Similarly, when I am flying in an airplane, I am motionless with respect to the airplane, but I am moving with respect to the air outside. Consider two synchronized clocks positioned at a distance from each other. The two clocks start moving towards each other at the same time with the same speed, and they stop when they meet. Note that this motion is perfectly symmetrical. Let us observe the two clocks from the point of view of an observer attached to the right clock. For this observer, the right clock has no motion, while the left clock is moving towards her. According to the special theory of relativity, the left clock runs slower and loses time. When the two clocks meet, the left clock shows an earlier time. Now let us observe the same motion from the point of view of another observer attached to the left clock. This time the left clock is stationary, and the right clock is moving. So it is the right clock that runs slower. When the two clocks meet, the right clock must show an earlier time, contrary to what we concluded in the previous case. This is known as the clock paradox. The fact is that because of symmetry, it is impossible for one of these clocks to run slower than the other. We see that the special theory of relativity leads to an impossible situation. Another version of this problem is known as the twin paradox. Instead of two clocks, we have twin brothers. One of the twins remains on the earth, and the other twin makes a long journey in a very high-speed rocket into space. When the traveling twin returns to the earth, he finds himself younger than his brother because he has been moving, and according to the special theory of relativity, time runs slower for someone who is moving. But one can argue that motion is relative. From the point of view of the brother on the earth, the traveling brother in the rocket is moving and remains younger, while from the point of view of the brother in the rocket, the other brother on the earth is moving and remains younger. The proponents of the special theory of relativity cannot resolve this contradiction. They attempt to find excuses such as asymmetry and acceleration. But as we saw in the clock paradox, the problem can be restated in a simpler and perfectly symmetrical way, so that no excuse is acceptable. Since the early 20th century, when the special theory of relativity emerged, many authors have tried different approaches to resolve this paradox. However, none of their explanations has been convincing enough to eliminate the problem. I refer you to a paper published recently in 2021, which concludes that the current explanations are unsatisfactory and the problem still remains. In the clock paradox, the word paradox is used to insist that it is an apparent contradiction, not a real one. However, after more than a century of not being able to resolve this paradox, it is time to admit that there is a real contradiction. Proof by contradiction is a powerful technique in logic. If an assumption leads to a contradiction, the assumption is false, and its negation is true. The invariance of the speed of light is a postulate that leads to contradictions, and therefore cannot be true. It is claimed that this postulate and its consequences has been confirmed by experiments. In the next videos I show that this claim is also incorrect.